Well, we've been making lots and lots of food projects on the channel lately, so I thought it was about time we talked about making tablecloths. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy it is to do this. All right, for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm using this Dollhouse miniature dining room table. You've probably seen it in some of the photographs of some of the foods we've made, and it's a good size, but this same method will work for any size table you have for your dollhouse. With a few adaptations, it will work for any round or oval table also. You'll simply have to have a good way of drawing. Like round would be easy, following the method. Oval, you'll need to figure out a way to draw your oval ends. But other than that, it's all the same. Square, rectangle, it doesn't matter. Now, when I was looking up information to prep for this, I looked up what is the proper length of the drop on a real dining room tablecloth. And I found anywhere from real life 6 inches to 12 inches. I tried one with a scale drop of 9 inches on each side, and I'll show you photos of that in the blog post. I'm going to go with an inch drop on each side. I think it'll look better on the table because this is kind of a big table, but you've got that variation. You can go any size in that range depending on the fabric you've got, the design you want to use, how much materials you have. I think a bigger table looks better with a little bit bigger drop. A smaller table, you could probably get by with a shorter drop. So what do we need? Our tablecloth will be made of 3 layers, and I'm just doing a very plain white tablecloth today. I'm using bleached muslin. This is actually a piece of the same fabric I'm using in the garden flag series that I'm doing monthly on the channel, where we're making the decorative holiday garden flags. But you don't have to use a plain white fabric. You could use a tiny print holiday fabric. The beauty of this method is you're not permanently attaching your tablecloth to your table, and it can be flattened out for storage. So it's perfect for doing a holiday tablecloth especially. And we might get into some holiday tablecloths later on the channel. I'm kind of playing with the idea of doing some holiday ones later. So we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, you'll need a lightweight, I prefer 100% cotton if possible, simply because it can hold up to the ironing that we're going to do in our putting this together. So this is our top side. We need a layer of aluminum foil. This is just regular aluminum foil out of the kitchen. One thing I have found in playing around with this, sorry for the glare, any little bumps on your aluminum foil are going to show on the top of your tablecloth, at least with the white fabric. So you want a really smooth piece of foil. Now, what's going to hold it all together is Heat and Bond Ultra Hold. There are other brands of this. What you're looking for is a basically heavy duty or permanent bond paper-backed fusible web. We've also used this on the garden flags. So let's look at what this is. It comes in a package like this, a Heat and Bond does. I'll try to have a list of some of the other brands, but my personal preference, I do a lot of sewing, a lot of crafting of all different kinds. I prefer the Heat and Bond Ultra Hold over the other brands that I have tried. Personal opinion, I just find I have better results. It's more reliable. Not getting paid by them, not sponsored, anything like that. So what you get is you get this piece of, basically it's paper with glue on it. This side is your paper side. Feels like paper, sounds like paper. This side is rough and a little bit shiny. This is a heat-activated glue. It will adhere your pieces together. There are other types of fusible bond materials available in the craft and fabric stores. There's some that don't have the paper backing. They're going to be a lot harder to use for this. It could be done, but there'd be a lot of extra steps. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay this out paper side up. One of the things I love about paperback fusing, other than how easy it is to use, is the fact I can draw my pattern on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is get my ruler, and I've got my great big quilting ruler here because it makes it easy to draw nice squared lines. So my table is about 3.5 by 6 inches. So I want to add an inch drop on each side. So that's going to be, so let me write this down. I'm going to write it down on the edge over here. 3.5, oops, are we off camera? We're off camera. 3.5 by 6. I'm going to add 2 inches to each of those. So 5.5 by 8 is going to be the size of our tablecloth. And that's the size of a rectangle I need to draw over here. But I'm not going to go all the way to the edge of my fusible bond. I am going to start in a little bit. And I've got plenty of space to do this here. I'm going to start right about here. I am going to line up with that line, with that edge. I'm going to make a line. Now, I'm going to come over 5.5 inches. Did I give myself, yeah, I gave myself enough space. Barely there. I've got a little bit here on my extra edge. That's exactly what I want. Making sure I'm nice and straight. I'm going to line up with that line again on one of my drawn lines. Give myself a, actually I'm going to work from this end so that I don't run into the, tripod with my ruler. You do want to make sure you have nice straight lines. Now I need 8 inches. Means I need to turn this way. Move up to 8. Make sure everything is lined up nice and straight. There we go. And right like that. Now I need to retrieve my scissors because I forgot I used to use this. I've got my rotary cutter for my sewing stuff. It's right here. I will trim this back a little bit more before I go to the ironing board. And cut this free from this. Now this can go back in the package along with any parts that I cut off that I'm not going to fuse onto my fabric. Now, you might be saying, but why are you leaving all that extra space? Well, I want to leave some extra space. I am going to cut out that part though. I don't need that much. I want to cut the fabric back to the cutting line when I get this all put on. That's because if I do that, I will have sealed the threads on the edge of my fabric and it won't unravel on me. So we have this. This will be what we are cutting this to. Now I need a piece of my fabric. I am going to go over here and I'm going to cut a piece of fabric that's bigger than that. Actually, I'm just going to take this whole thing to my ironing board and do it because then I can cut it to size once it's on. I have this edge straight into the grain. That will help it to hang a little better. So I need to go set up my ironing board, move the camera to the ironing board, and we will get started with the next step. All right, we've moved my ironing board. Ignore the stains on my ironing board cover. It is clean, it's very old, and it's stained from years and years of use. So I'm trying to find the area I want to use of my fabric. So I have my fabric here. I have my iron preheated to the temperature that it needs to be. Check your package of whatever brand of fusible web you purchase. Let's see, I'm going to have to move you guys just a bit. There we go. Now you can see everything I'm doing. So I am going to press this. Now I have my iron set to dry, not to steam. And this pressing is doing two things. It is making sure that I have it nice and smooth, but it's also preheating my fabric so my fusible web will work even better. Now, I'm going to line this up in this area, and this is paper side up. This is the paper side we drew on, and this ironing only needs about 2 seconds in each area. We're just kind of pre-melting that glue. Excuse me. Now it's a good idea to let this cool for just a few minutes. When it gets cool, I'm going to come along, that's really hot, and I'm going to cut on these lines, on these pencil lines, so that my piece of fabric and my fusible web are this size. When I have that done, I'll come back and we'll move on to our next step. All right, I have this trimmed down to size. So now I've got my foil here, and I like to use the shiny side, that way the dull side is towards my furniture. It doesn't matter. Now I've got a piece of just printer paper on top of here. And I'm going to kind of press this. I'm trying to get rid of any wrinkles and also to preheat that foil a bit. That's pretty good. It might show a few little bumps, but not many. Now, this is going to be the hardest part of the whole project. You're going to go here and you're going to fold a corner, and you've got to separate that paper off of the fusible web. This is our paper, this is our fabric, and this is the shiny side. This is the glue. Pull that off. Put this onto the smoothest part of your foil. Lay it down, and I like to always put a piece of paper or something to work as a pressing cloth. Now, about 8 seconds over each area. So I'm not counting, I'm just going feel here. I'll turn the camera off and I'll probably do it again. You're going to stop at each space for 8 seconds and then move to the next one. I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back and we'll flip this over and iron it again. All right, that's done. And we can see a few wrinkles in it, but it's fine. I'm actually going to turn this over, put my paper over it, and I'm going to just give it a good press from the back. And this is all done with no steam on the iron. Now, I want this to cool completely to room temperature before I handle it. So I'm going to turn the camera off, let this cool, and then we'll move back to the table and go on to the last couple of steps. All right, this is cooled down to room temperature. I'm going to cut part of this on camera, and then I'll turn the camera off and do the rest because it's just going to be a repetition. Take not your best pair of scissors and cut the foil. I'm kind of angling my scissors down so that the bottom blade is under here and the top blade is over a bit. And this is going to be easier when you can have it up to your face. But I'm just going to cut right around. I'm going to cut up all the foil all the way around. When that's done, I'll come back and we will put this on the table. All right, this all trimmed back. And if you have any foil showing, just run your finger, kind of brush it back to the back. It's really hard to get the foil cut exactly where you want it. There. And there's a few bumps where you can see where there were wrinkles in my fabric, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. So now we need to fold our edges back. So we're going to turn to the aluminum foil side. I've got a smaller ruler just simply because it's easier to get it under camera. Now remember, I cut this with a 1-inch drop on each side of my table. So I'm going to line this up, the edge up with the 1-inch line. And I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to go to this side. And I'm going to do something very similar. This way I have a pre-crease where I want my tablecloth to crease nicely over the edge of my table. And if we did our measuring right, this should fit perfectly on the table. Now, I know a lot of people use starch and things like that to stiffen their tablecloths, and I've done that in the past. The unfortunate part is sometimes, depending on the starch you use, it can yellow the fabric over time. And also there's always the possibility that you might get something onto your table that you don't want to, especially if you've got a more valuable Dollhouse miniature table than I do. Looks like I need to clean my work surface here. I'm picking up lint to fix that later. All right, so we bring this over, bring it down, and we start fiddling. And I will have pictures of this from the side so you can see what it looks like. But what we do is we kind of just place our corners. And you can either, there's lots of ways that tablecloths will fall in real life. I recommend go online, find a picture of a table that you really like the way it's draped. Or play around with the tablecloth on your table in your home and get it set just the way you want it and use that as a reference, kind of like we use a reference photo when we're making food. And just kind of fiddle, go from one corner to the next. And the beauty of this is the aluminum foil is going to hold the crease. Our fabric is going to hang exactly where we put it. I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to fiddle with my corners a bit. And I'm going to make them go right where I want them. And it's a slow process. You want to do this a little bit at a time. Don't go overboard when you first start. Although worst case scenario, you can take this back to the ironing board and put a piece of something over it to protect it and your iron, and you can iron this flat again. Pretty happy with that. Now if you want to do a formal table with a tablecloth going all the way to the floor, you can do that too. And those usually have some really pretty ruffly bits in them. That would be super easy to do with this method. So I am going to continue fiddling with this off camera. I'm going to get it exactly the way I want it, and then I'm going to change our view so we're looking at the table from the side so you can see exactly how this looks. So I'll be back in a sec. Alright, so I've got my table set up against kind of a makeshift background, and I love how this turns out. I love making tablecloths like this because they're easy to do. They look wonderful, and those folds will keep forever. Just to show you the difference, I've got a couple of things I can show you. First off, here's just a piece of fabric that is the same size, and you can see it would take a lot of fussing to get this to look right. And I've actually seen pictures, people showing their dollhouse with just that for a tablecloth, and it just doesn't look as nice. Now I did do one with just a 3/4 inch drop, and I just looked a little too short on this table. I think on a smaller table it would be fine, but for this size table I really prefer this size. Oops, sorry about that squeaky sound. But you can see it's easy to change it out. Now if you wanted to store this, I would say just flatten out the corners and store it this way, and then you can fold it back for the holiday or for whenever you're going to use it again. So I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Be sure and check the blog post for more information, photos, more information about all the products used. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, leave me a comment. What would you like to see in future videos? If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.